talk about, I know probably you all want to get into into technology, but I want to go to use cases. So we're going to talk about why people would use wearable technology and use that as a vehicle to talk about what technology we've put into the device. A little bit about software, and then I want to do a demo. I brought an Elmo so that I can show you all what the device looks like and how it functions. I also want to show you our micro app store, which we just launched on Wednesday night. So that's hot off the presses. And then we'll come back, talk a little about business model, and then open it up. How does that sound? Okay? So wearable technology, let's put this on the spectrum of the technology you already own. When you sit down in front of your television, it's typically for multiple hours at a time and usually only one session per day. You're plopped on the couch. As you are starting to use more and more devices that are smaller and smaller, the session times decrease, but the number of times you use them per day increases. Your smartphone, maybe it's 5 minutes at a time, but 30 times a day. So we think that wearable technology is the next step in this trend, where you might look at a wristwatch 100 times a day, but it's only going to be for 3 to 5 seconds at a time. That's the paradigm that we've created, and we're basing this on how we already use wearable technology, specifically in the watches that have been around for 400 years. So the first use case is you. We are all, as business professionals, steeped in time. Everything depends on it. And what we're trying to do with wearable technology at WIM Labs is to insert personal data into time. So for example, this device is always on. I have 2 of them here. This device is always on. We have a reflective screen in the background so that whenever you glance at the device, you can always see the time. That is our minimum requirement. But that meant that we actually had to put 2 different screens into the device, a reflective screen and, when I press and hold the device, a full color backlit screen. We're using a capacitive touch screen so that this is now an interactive experience. But that only introduces you to your own data. How do you get the data onto the device? We've put a Wi-Fi radio and a Bluetooth radio into this device so that you can connect to the cloud, send information up to the cloud, and more importantly, pull information down from the cloud. But we're a multifunctional platform. There are many wearable devices that are single function, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful pieces of hardware. They're very tuned to their single function. We're a multifunction device, which means that we look to you as business professionals not just in what you want to be using during your workday, but also then what you want to be doing after work. So we move into the fitness realm. Specifically, what we've done here is put a lot of hardware power behind this and a lot of sensors. We have an accelerometer in the device, so we can sense motion. A magnetometer is for compass direction. A GPS, obviously for location. Let me put an asterisk by that. The GPS is in every device, but we're tuning the performance right now in the product that we have shipping currently. But it's modular. We are not a wristwatch company. That is not our ambition. The strap is actually, for the most part, irrelevant. This is what we create, a very, very small computer that you can put in a strap if you choose, but you could put it on a belt clip and a pendant, or you can start to move away from the body altogether and, as this gentleman is, put it on the handlebars of a bicycle. What is important here is not attachment, it's access. We want you to have quick access to your own relevant information. So then we have this gentleman who is without a doubt posing for the crowd. I think he's flexing on purpose. I don't have those kind of pipes. There's a lot of technology that we have underneath the touchscreen. We have an ARM11 processor. So we're running a full applications processor that is similar to what many of you have in your smartphones right now. And we have a lot of memory in this device. The WIM1, which is our developer preview kit, ships with 2 gigs of memory. We actually have a micro SD card in the device. So we can go up to 32 if we want to. This is not user swappable, because what we've also done is seal the device so that it's water resistant. Now, it's not waterproof. This is not a diving watch. We'd love to get there. We're not there yet. But this means that at least you can wash the dishes and not have to worry about taking your consumer electronics off your wrist. This is also, we've made it incredibly small and incredibly light. In fact, it's so light that some of the partners that we've been talking to who are in the luxury watch business say that it's too light. And they asked us to do a separate version for which we have prototypes in ceramic, simply to increase the heft of the device. Because in the luxury watch business, heft is equivalent to value. So we actually feel that 22 grams in this case, for some users, is not heavy enough. So we've bulked it up in some models. There are a couple of different ways to use the device. If we have Wi-Fi in the device, you can run this as an autonomous computer by itself. But we also recognize that almost everybody in this room also has a smartphone, which has its own set of radios. So we have some software applications that allow the connection over Bluetooth between the device and a smartphone to be robust. So we can send information, instead of just going to the cloud from the device, we can send information from the device to a smartphone. For example, we have, and I'll show you a demo of this later, we have caller ID, SMS coming from the smartphone to the device. We have some developers who have created, using Bluetooth, a remote control. So from my WIM device, I can control my Android smartphone and any application on it. We have another developer who created an application from my WIM device. I can control any application on my Windows PC. So we recognize that the use case isn't just as an autonomous computer out in the middle of nowhere, that it's also as one particular device in a constellation of hardware that you may have around you. Our battery life right now, everything we do when we architected this product is focused on battery life. This is a tough problem to solve in such a small device. So right now, we're running at about 30 hours in normal use. We can talk about what that means. Normal use, by the way, this is even us hardcore users in the office, this is typically what we get, 30 hours. If you're connected via Bluetooth to a smartphone, because the device is always sniffing and always paired, the battery life comes down a little bit to about 24 hours. This means that we have a little dock. We have a little paddle charger with magnetic attachments and little pins here that connect to the back of the device. This is the charger, and in my house it sits right next to my cell phone charger because I charge both of them at night. So that's the technology wrapped into use cases. Let me move then to talk about the applications that are running on this. And this is obviously why I'm here. We're running Android natively on this device. It is Android 2.1. We're migrating up the ladder as fast as we can. But right now, that's where we started. We have an SDK. We changed some APIs. And we did that because our device lacks some of the hardware that the Android operating system is expecting. For example, we don't have a camera. So therefore, those camera APIs are out. We don't have a 3G radio in the device. So we don't have a persistent connection. Instead, using Wi-Fi, we have a batch model, which means that once an hour, the Wi-Fi radio will spin up, send and receive all the information you want, and then shut back down again. That means that we had to customize that API so that you, as developers, could write applications for that sync model. But the key behind a micro app is, even though we're running Android that all of you understand, that the UI needs to be different. Because we're running on a smaller screen, and because we're attached to the body all the time, the use cases are different for why you'd use an app. The feature set needs to be different. So we've coined the term micro app. Same technology as what you have on a smartphone, but our goal is to get developers and users thinking about applications in a new category. We have a few developers who took Android smartphone apps, changed the APIs slightly, and put it on the device. And it works. There's actually even a developer who put Angry Birds onto the device. And it works. But unless you reconsider the UI, it's not the kind of user experience that is ideal for such a small device. It's not a micro experience. So we spend a lot of time at WIM Labs helping developers and users understand that this is not just a smaller Android smartphone, that this is a new category of device that requires some new thinking. Okay? So the question was, why did we choose Android as the operating system? A couple of different answers to that. The first is the developer community. Our device depends on applications that other people write. Our goal is to create an ecosystem around the product for software and for hardware. We couldn't write all of the apps from scratch, and therefore we wanted to go where the developers already were and to use tools that the developers already understand. Our SDK is an add-in to current Android development tools. So if you use Eclipse, it still works. That's exactly what you'd use to create a micro application for the WIM platform. Does that answer the question? That's a big part of it. The other part of it is that a lot of the work to adapt the libraries and the lower code to our hardware has already been done. We can go out and find different pieces of code that helps us adapt this to our chipset. The question is Android the best platform? So far, in our experience, yes. So far, it is. It might even be the only platform that could allow us to do what we've done. I'm not sure we could have built this product using another operating system. That make sense? Okay. So this is primarily a data consumption device. You want to take quick glances of information. You don't want to write a message. If you get an SMS, we have a method so that you can just do a pull-down menu, and we have a few canned responses, such as, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. If you actually had to use a letter picker on here to type, I'm going to be 5 minutes late, you're going to be 10 minutes late. It is not designed for data input. So we've created a companion web service that controls the device. It doesn't just have settings for the general settings for the device itself, but each application can have its own settings, so that any application can actually do most of the data input up on the web, and then we pull that into the APK, in the application itself. Yes, sir? We do not have voice recognition. We don't have a microphone in the device. We're thinking about that for future versions, but right now there's no room in the module. This box is chock-a-block full. Nothing else we could have crammed in here. So that means that for loading apps onto the device, for managing the device, how often it syncs, what time zone you're in, for managing any specific application, which cities do I want to pop up in my weather app, what's my Google account so I can connect to my calendar, we point you back to the website so you can do all of this device and application management. That make sense? I'm going to show it to you so you can see it firsthand. I think that puts us into the demo. Alrighty. So the first thing to note here is that this is the reflective mode. This is what you see all day. The backlight is not on. I haven't touched it. I haven't spun the screen up. This is the view that you can get all day. When I touch the device, that's when I spin up. That's when the color screen comes on. The applications processor just launched. We are now running Android. And this is a watch face, and the watch face is also just another Android application. So if you don't like it, change it. So you can have watch faces that do whatever you want them to do. And a watch face, actually where I started, doesn't have to show time at all if you don't want, and it can bring data from other places in the system. In this case, it's pulling a calendar event that I have tomorrow morning at 7:30. I have a conference call. So this is just pulling right out of my calendar. If I didn't, oh, you saw I timed out and went into standby mode there. And we have other developers who are already creating watch faces. This is one of my favorites. This is showing you the time, current time. What it's doing right here is hours across the vertical stripe. The horizontal line is minutes past the hour. These are people who are getting creative with how they want to demonstrate time to you. So you then get out of the app, the watch faces, and I'm now into the applications launcher. Uh-oh, I pulled that down, sorry. So we have about 25 applications that third parties have written. There's a quick coffee card. This indeed is my Starbucks barcode, so I can pay at Starbucks with a flick of my wrist. A lot of different games where people are using the accelerometer and the piezo beeper and the vibrator in order to actually do sort of limited haptic feedback so you can have a game that can do interesting things. Let me pull up the calendar. Here is you. Here's the meeting from tonight. The calendar is, we can pull from Google Calendar or from Microsoft Exchange right out of the box. You just go on the website, which I'll show you in a sec, in order to put your credentials in there. But the point here for the calendar is that this is what we mean by micro experience. This is my day. If I want to go see tomorrow, there it is. The day after. We're trying to do something quick, as easy as possible. Let me show you what's interesting in here. How about, there you go. So here's the detail for a calendar entry. In the calendar application, you can't add invitees. You can't select the location. This is not a technical limitation. We could have written the application in a way that you could invite whoever you wanted to and select location. But we intentionally said, wait a minute, this is a micro app. This is supposed to be a quick glance at information so you can consume it and understand it quickly. This is not a good place to actually try and do a lot of writing. Here's the weather. Same thing, if I just go down, I get more. If I want different cities, I scroll over. I've set up all of these cities on my web page, and we're just pulling from AccuWeather. So very simple application that we hope will, there's a whole bunch of different games on here. Oh, there's that one. Somebody was playing around and wanted to do a mock-up of the Google icon, and the time, by the way, are the hands in the O's. We also have some people who are joking around with time and having a nice time. For example, carbon and xenon right now, their atomic weights are 654. So this is the current time. But wait, that doesn't win the prize for the geekiest way to tell time. The geekiest way to tell time so far is, let me see if I have it on here. Oh, we have pedometer, Foursquare check-in. Here's the geekiest way to tell time. So this is a QR code that if you scan it with your smartphone, this will return the current time, and you see how it's changing with every second? And then when he goes into reflective mode, we update the reflective mode once a minute. So he is, in this case, reduced the amount of seconds. I don't know if you could just tell that the QR code actually got simpler. And then when I touch it again, and we go back from reflective into active, that's when he starts adding seconds back in again.
So it's pixel for pixel.
Yes, well no, you can declare between active and standby what you want to show in both. You don't actually have to, what you show in standby doesn't have to be the same as what you show in active.
It's the same pixel range.
It's the same.
Pixel amount. Same resolution. Same resolution.
Yes, same resolution. Sorry, yes, same resolution, 160 by 160, whether you're in active or in standby. But what we're intentionally doing is letting the developers declare what they want these views to be. Here's a mini Ford Exchange application, so you can see what currency rates are. The binary watch face, which I thought would have been the geekiest, but no. QR code wins. The remoter application is what I can use to control my Android smartphone. Or, by the way, anything else that's running Android. So from a tablet to anything else. The obligatory Bible, somebody wanted to do that, so you can read it from wherever you are. So I want to talk about this one because this is hilarious. This one cracks me up. So there is a developer who is a consummate technology explorer. So what he did was to create a connection between the WIM device over Wi-Fi to his Xbox Connect. And then he had the Xbox Connect on constant video streaming mode in infrared in the dark. So when anybody would walk through his basement, the Xbox Connect would capture the infrared video, send it to the WIM device so that it becomes remote security monitoring in the dark. And if the person turned towards the Xbox Connect would capture their picture and do some facial recognition, so it would stick on their face, even if they started moving around. The Xbox Connect knows their face. So from the WIM device, you are looking at exactly who is walking around your basement. And then if you touch the face of the WIM device, the Xbox Connect box in the middle of your basement sets off an alarm and starts screaming and yelling, and he attached strobe lights to it, which means that you're going to scare the hell out of somebody who's walking through your basement, and you can do this from a flick of your wrist wherever you are. He thought that this was an interesting spy application. He was joking around. And I had a talk with him. Wait a minute. This is a spectacular advancement in terms of home healthcare and remote patient monitoring. There are people who really actually want to have other people helping them in case they fall down in the dark. And being able to figure out whether it was who fell down in the dark, and being able to perhaps even jar them awake or try and wake them up. So this has, I think, fantastic applications for going into other industries. Here's another application, the Guardian Angel application. And he took a similar approach in that he is also streaming video. So there it is right there. He can stream video to the device. And he made this application so anybody who owns a WIM1 can go download this application and try it out. So he's streaming video from a webcam, but he's also using the accelerometer to know if you've fallen. So he's measuring the big bump, and then if there is no activity after that, he's known that you've fallen and you can't get up. And then he has a back-end web service that's sending an SMS or an email to anybody who you specify when you set up the application. In other words, again, he's getting into remote patient monitoring. I think this is an incredibly powerful direction for wearable computing. So the question was, how does constant use of the accelerometer affect battery? It does decrease it, but we've attached the accelerometer actually to the microcontroller, so we can allow the device to go back into standby mode and still collect accelerometer data. Now there are some limitations for how we've done that, so if you actually want to try and do that with your own application, let's talk about that for the way we've architected it and the way we want to architect it in the future. But right now, we're allowing the device to go into standby mode as it is here. Let me put this also in another watch face so that if any of my colleagues at work see this, they won't actually know how much of a geek I am, and show you which watch faces that I really, really like. Oh, here's one. Let's do that one. There's another watch face. Pretty simple. I'm just pulling from the weather app to show what the temperature is in my hometown. And you had a question.
Does it get a vibrator on there?
Yes, has a vibrator, beeper, and buzzer. So a piezo alarm. And we actually just have, I think it's not loud enough. Let me try it. We have a developer who just today created a new application that allows you to use this device as a tuning fork, he says. So hold on, let me grab this. Oh, there's a heart rate monitor application that also will start to do blood pressure. I have no, let's see if this works. There it is. So he thinks that that's an E. I have no idea. Yeah. So yes, piezo and then a vibrator. And the vibrator, without a doubt, is strong enough to wake you up if you leave it attached to your device, and it's even strong enough, I found that if I forget to turn the sound on when I have an alarm that goes off, it will actually just shaking on my bedside table wake me up. Those pins along the bottom, we have 14 pins, and so that people can create different accessories. They can create a watch strap. We published the CAD files already for what the module looks like, so anybody can create a watch strap right now with the CAD files. We also will talk to people about what these pins do. We have USB, I2C, audio out, audio in, a couple of dock detect, a couple of grounds. That should pretty quickly add up to 14. Our goal here is to allow people to take this module and to use it as the hub for whatever new type of equipment you intend to build. So if you, for example, want to build a motorized wheelchair, this is a developer that's working on this, motorized wheelchair, he knows about wheelchairs, he knows about mechanics, he doesn't know about electronics, and he doesn't really want to learn. What he really wants to do is plug this into the armrest and then write an Android application to control the wheelchair from there. That's all he wants to do. With this, plug it into the armrest, especially if you have battery power that can give you more battery, means you can, if you wanted to leave the screen on in active mode all the time, you can. Yes, sir? Okay. So there are two different questions. The first is, if you own a WIM device, could you connect via Bluetooth to a smartphone and then tether it so that the smartphone is using its own connections, Wi-Fi, 3G radio, whatever, to bring internet data down to the device? Yes. You can tether this device so that you can get faster connections and more persistent connection to the device. At some point, you got to start worrying about power, right? Is this really the best use case for the technology that we've built so far? So we can have that discussion. But our goal right now is to say, yes, you can bring internet data through the smartphone to the device. We also have, for Android and BlackBerry phones, a smartphone companion application that goes on the smartphone. Because Android to Android, we can do a lot of interesting things. So, and we're growing that particular side of functionality all the time. So right now, what we're doing is sending photo caller ID. Oh wait, Ben, is this the time? Where's Ben? Ben, you want to call me? So what we're doing is sending photo caller IDs if you're on an Android smartphone connected to the device. There's Ben calling me right now. I'm in the middle of something, so I'm going to send him to voicemail, and that's done. But the point there is that I can receive a notification, it buzzes, it beeps on my wrist. If I want to pick it up, I can, or I can send it to voicemail. What we're trying to do is allow you to have more control over the smartphone, even if the smartphone is in your bag or at your desk. So that's the smartphone companion helps us do that even more robustly if we're connected on an Android or a BlackBerry smartphone, because we can do more on those platforms. The iOS locks down some of those capabilities. The second question you had was about OpenWatch, and the answer right now is no. We're not working with that particular open architecture, but I'd love to talk about it more. I think the question you just asked is if your, and let me try and rephrase it, if your device, WIM device on your wrist is paired with your smartphone and you leave your smartphone on the couch and walk away, do we have an application that will tell you that you just perhaps lost your phone? Yes. So it is a pretty easy application to really say we're constantly sniffing and aware of that pairing, and if it breaks unexpectedly, let's alert you. Now we also have a feature so that you can turn that application off in case you get tired of walking away from your car and all of a sudden having your wrist go crazy. The smartphone companion app is one of the use cases. So it's the application that could go on your Android smartphone in order to enhance the connection between this and a smartphone. But without a doubt, we do not view ourselves as a smartphone companion. In fact, that's why we're running Android natively. Maybe this, let me take as a question. So Oswald was going to prompt me to talk about other different things in the industry. There are a couple of other devices out there that are smartphone companion smartwatches. And what they're doing is the Android smartphone is doing the thinking and then sending the screen, basically, the screen up to the device, and it's a dumb terminal. That's a great model if that's your use case. We think that that is too small of a use case. So no, our addressable market is not even smartphone companion or even smartwatch or even, I think, wearable computing, because you could, you put this in a wheelchair and all of a sudden we're into medical devices. Or you could put this as the switch on the wall, and this is the smartest switch you've ever had that could actually run the home network from here. So then we're into embeddable computing. So we think this is a huge market that's exploding. Yes, sir, in the back. So let me run through really quickly again what these pins are, and then we can talk about some of the specifics afterwards. So we have USB and power, it's 4. Audio, left, right, mic, so in, out. We have I2C, it's another 2. We have a couple of grounds in there, and we have some dock detect pins so that we can know if you're putting this into one particular device and therefore that has buttons on it that you want it to control something else, like the beautiful Jambox, right? So that starts to get us into our pins. What I love is feedback from you afterwards as to whether that's enough, right? Or whether we need to do more in order to make this a device that you can put into almost anything. So the question is, do we have NFC? And the answer is not yet. Would it be worthwhile? I think so. NFC has a chicken and the egg problem right now, and we don't really want to be either, right? We would love somebody else to solve the chicken and egg problem and then come in afterwards. Our problem with NFC right now is size. We just can't fit anything else into this box. So we look forward to implementing NFC as we either gain more size or those particular components reduce in size. Yes, sir, in the back. The question was, do we consider ANT+? We did, and we still are. The problem with ANT+ is it's like Bluetooth without all the rules. So a couple of developers started using it for connecting to, for example, a heart rate monitor, or the a bike monitor for the front wheel of your bicycle for cadence. Most of the bike monitors out there currently use ANT+. So yes, we're looking at it, and we hope to incorporate that into our next product down the line. I'm not sure. ANT+ is what is currently pervasive in the market. I think that will get replaced by Bluetooth 4.0, which includes BLE. You don't think so? So right now, we're looking at putting both of them into the next product, and by you shaking your head, I think that you're saying that that's a good thing to put both of them in there. We were founded about 3 years ago by a couple of, couple of people who were from Roku, Motorola, Palm, and then our CEO had been at Intel for a long time and then ran Rambus, which is a technology licensing company. I tell you this because it actually has matters to the business model that we've chosen. So they started this about 3 years ago, saying, how do we make wearable technology that is beyond, that not just a smartwatch, but then goes beyond smartwatch? So that's when they started, 3 years ago is when they started figuring out the business case and starting to do some of the hardware architecture. 2 years ago is when they really started adding people, and they raised an A round from Foxconn, which is the manufacturing company that makes all of the products basically that everybody in this room is using, the consumer electronics products, the iPhone, the iPad. We kept building. We raised a B round from Foxconn as well, and they are helping us with manufacturing. So the product is manufactured in Shenzhen, China. And then we just launched our first product back in November, which is the Wim1 Developer Kit. So we started basically last November with a developer preview kit. And the goal is to help developers and users understand what wearable technology could be and to help us understand what all of the different applications could be. We're also a licensing company. You will not see a product in Best Buy from WIM Labs. We're not a consumer products company. Instead, we work with brands who want to get into wearable technology, and we help them do that quickly. For example, they licensed this from us. We have it manufactured, so it's not sort of a software or hardware reference design that we do drive-by licensing and sort of chuck it out the window and then keep going. We actually say, where would you like us to deposit, to drop, ship these devices? They can create the strap for them. They can create the back-end website for them. And they can offer them under their own brand through their own channels with whatever application suite they want. In some ways, that means that we are the anti-Apple. What we've intentionally done is allow individual companies to specify the product that they'd like to build, and therefore to be in front of the consumer with their own brand. They don't have to be subservient to the hardware brand or the carrier brand. They can be out front and center with the hardware. And our licensees are in the fitness space, the mobile carrier space, the business professional case, the use cases that I already showed you. Those are the primary licensees that we're working with right now. But this is not just for big brands. This also means that smaller software development companies who thought that they were forever going to be a subservient brand that was stuck in the iTunes App Store can now actually have their own hardware that goes direct to their own consumers if they choose. So it's that technology licensing history from our founders that informs right now our current business model, and this is why we're a platform company that is working with licensees as opposed to a final consumer electronics company. So the comment was, have we ever, can I paraphrase again? What if we were to, so this right now is three different pieces of technology, a screen, a board, and a battery. And you're saying, what if we were just to take out the board and sell the board and people could put it in whatever product they want with a different screen, different place, battery someplace else? Their sensors. I think that that's interesting. Right now, we're just focused on this. This is a large enough market and a hard enough technical problem that we're sticking to our knitting with this. The question was, where could we get this now? So again, he's bringing me back on track. What we're doing right now is selling this for $199 on Amazon. So you can either go to wim.com, which I think I have right up there, wim.com, which is where you can, or you can go straight to Amazon, and that's where you can buy the developer preview kit that we're trying to keep it as affordable as possible so that developers can then start experimenting and creating applications. This also means that I know what I don't want to do is run a long time. Uh-oh, what did I kick? Here is the back-end system. Hold on, let me hit a button to get that. Here are the settings for the device. Right? This is where I can set the time, the date. Again, you don't want to do this on the device. You can turn some different settings on or off. Down here at the bottom is the sync interval. That's where I can tell it whether I want to sync every hour, every 24 hours, or we're even working, now that we have some devices out in the market and we're seeing what real usage looks like, we're working on bringing that interval to shorter periods of time. Well, let me just show real quick the Micro App Store. So there are several different watch faces, some people who have done interesting things around travel, some games, some productivity measures, a stock ticker, some shopping tools. There's a Twitter feed, and some fitness-related applications.
Is that all free now?
Right now, this is all free. So we haven't added e-commerce yet to our store. So our first job was to have a store where people could add applications. If you click add here, the next time your device syncs, the application will be installed. Our next step is to add e-commerce so that people can charge for their applications. So the question was, there are a lot of different app stores. For Android, We had to create our own store because, first of all, we curate the store. So we're testing all of the applications as they go through to ensure that they're stable. And we haven't seen that from some of the main Android stores without naming names, right? If a brand wants to create a product with the WIM module at its core, they will also be able to take this app store, choose which applications they want in or out. If it's a healthcare-focused device, then they can only put in healthcare-focused applications if they want to. I think part of the value of the device is being able to have healthcare applications when you're focused on healthcare and then have everything else when you're not, but that's up to them. And then this store would appear as though it's coming from them. The other piece, hold on a sec, the other piece that I didn't show you that I want to do this, so on my device, each application has its own settings. So this, for example, is where I put in my Google username and password to authenticate to get my calendar down to my device. So each application can also have its settings. This is another reason that we couldn't put our applications into the existing Android stores because they don't have this kind of plumbing. The question was, when will licensees come to market with these products? We haven't made those announcements yet. And is it a year or 2 years? We hope that it's under a year. Yes. No, we're on the path and producing a lot of these devices. The question was, do we have a style guide for the platform? We have a full SDK that helps people develop, and as part of that, we have something called the Micro App Guideline, which helps people understand user experience and what they should expect from the device. It is not particularly well written, and I can say that because I wrote it. So we are always looking to figure out what the actual developers are finding and what lessons resonate with them and what lessons I forgot to include in this Micro App Guideline document. He has it right there. So my apologies if it's putting you to sleep. Yes, sir. So the question was, can you root it, right? Okay. So we're doing everything we can not to allow you to root it. And I am 100% sure that you will figure out ways to do it anyway. The plan right now is, and it's sort of vital to our investors and our business model, that our software updates arrive over the air in the background and magically appear, and that hopefully we're keeping up enough so that you don't have to root it, but you're going to do it anyway. I actually asked one gentleman, a developer who had rooted the device, put ice cream sandwich on it, and then he was the one who ran Angry Birds. And I sent him a note saying, and he took a video of it, so it's up on YouTube. And I sent him a note saying, that's incredibly clever, right? How'd you do it? And he said, there's no way I'm telling you. Yeah. And then just to taunt me, he said, but by the way, there are 3 different ways you need to pay attention to for how I could have done it. Yeah. So he was just poking at me. The typical scenario for accepting a developer's application, it needs to be technically stable. And we've defined that in our micro app guidelines. What does it mean not to crash? How are you make sure that you're using our APIs? We sniff for nefarious code. We have a testing agency that does a lot of the testing for some of the other large Android stores out there. And then we prompt you to use the micro app guidelines for user experience, but we don't force that. If you want to try and cram features in here, if you want to read a book on here, that's up to you. So we won't force that, but we will strongly suggest, you and I will get on the phone and I'll try and do my best to persuade you that maybe that UI is not the best UI for a micro experience. But that's not a hard and fast cutoff. What we're trying to do is make sure that if a user downloads an application, that their device still lasts for the full 30 hours that they're expecting. Battery power is key. Our platform uses our WIM framework. So the first thing you need to do in the manifest is declare that you're using the WIM framework. There are 5 different things that you need to do to a standard Android application to customize it for the WIM framework, and they're all pretty simple. So no, not every Android 2.1 application will work on our device. We do not. Unfortunately, we took WebKit out And we're adding it back in because we took it out because we said, wait a minute, if you're in this batch Wi-Fi sync model, then it doesn't make sense. And by the way, inputting something doesn't make sense. We took it out because we couldn't envision the use case. And then we had a lot of developers who said, wait a minute, we want to use it to render. So we're adding it back in. So the question was, if you have this dual application requirement, right? So you have one application that runs on the WIM device and another application that runs on a companion smartphone. How do you specify that? We actually have in the Micro App Store the Remoter app that does the remote control from a WIM device to an Android phone. He puts the link right in the description, and he puts it in the application itself. So we're trying to queue that up, but it's still right now a manual process. We look for, there are some interesting things we think we can do with links and QR codes, but we're not into the phone, right? So we need to help people get there, but we can't force the app into their phone. If you'd like to develop applications, go to wim.com. There's a link. We ask you to register your email address, mostly so that we can keep you up to date with when we come out with software updates, SDK updates. You download the SDK right here, and you put it right into your Android development tools, and you start going. It includes the emulator, so you are off to the races. If you then decide that you need to practice on actual hardware, which I recommend just for understanding what the UI is like, then it's off to Amazon through wim.com. So everything you need is at wim.com for you to get into this. So the question is, what are some of the things we're doing for security to weed out, I'm paraphrasing, to read out nefarious code? Is that a good paraphrase where you're on? A couple of different things we've done on the device. We have our own certificate authority. So we are verifying who you are in order to give you a certificate so that you can post apps to our store. That's the first step. One of the things we also do is here is a package manager. If somebody tries to put an application through the store that's incorrectly signed, every time the device, or if they try and sideload an application onto a device, right? Every time the device connects to the internet, it checks to see whether the packages on the device are actually packages that are authorized for the device. So we're doing this check whenever we connect to the internet to make sure that we don't have any nefarious code. The other way that we're doing this is through our testing methodology. This third-party agency is running the APK in a whole bunch of emulators and on different types of environments to try and do their best to sniff around the edges to make sure that it's not using the network incorrectly, that it's not creating services that are thrashing around, that the permissions in the manifest of the APK are indeed reasonable permissions, and that it's not abusing those. So we're doing the best we can, we think, on Android and then some in order to ensure that there's no nefarious code that could hijack data. I would love, though, to have a discussion with other people who need us to go farther. So the question was, can you do, just as we can do from your device, you can do Find My Phone. The question is, can you do Find My WIM? That's actually tough given our batch Wi-Fi model. But what you can do is, if your phone is still paired to your WIM device, from the phone, you can tell the device to squeal. Right? So that's especially important because if you worry right now that your phone gets lost in the couch cushions, this thing can have a mind of its own. So the question was, what if we were to, instead of having the device with all the hardware and therefore all the expense in this autonomous device, what if instead we were to focus on being a smartphone companion piece of hardware and therefore take out some of the components that we already have to lower the price and perhaps get to a bigger market? Does that paraphrase the question that you had? So wearable computing is not limited to just being a smartphone companion. And when the first iPads launched, when the first tablet computers launched, people said, wait a minute, it's just a big smartphone. So therefore, why do I need that? I already have my iPhone. Why do I need something bigger? And I think what we have all recognized is that when you change the form factor dramatically, the use cases start to change, and these take on a market of their own. So now people have tablets that are fully featured and fully powered, and they don't worry about the fact that maybe there's some overlapping technology. It's the fact that this now can do different things in a different form factor. What we're trying to do with our technology isn't to obviate your cell phone, It's to get into different use cases, whether it's strapped to your body or whether it's in the arm of a wheelchair or whether it's hospital administration, where you are no longer actually expecting to have a smartphone, where instead you are now an autonomous wearable computing device, where the user paradigm is now for these subtle glances of information that isn't depending upon your smartphone. So we can now branch off, and we are now unencumbered by having to have a smartphone nearby. And we think that that will introduce us to entirely new markets in fitness, where you don't want to have a smartphone, right? You're trying to actually lighten the load. Or in business productivity, where your smartphone maybe is in your pocket or in your briefcase, and you want glances of information because your smartphone is now a cacophony of information that it's overload, where you just want a glance of the things that are most important to you very quickly and subtly. So we think that the use cases for wearable technology take us in a different direction than something that's just tethered to a smartphone, and that this by itself is a new blossoming sector that we're attempting to penetrate and to explore. That make sense? Did I wrap it in a bow? That's pretty good. Yeah. All right, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.